This is a rough prototype of a zoetrope. Knowing that this thing works, let's build a better one. I set the fence at the correct width and cut my plywood to size. Next, I set a stop block on my cross-cut sled and start cutting the sides to length. I need to remove this piece so I can create a half-lap joint. Again, I use a stop block and I remove the material with multiple passes on the table saw. I clean the joint with a sanding block. And this is how the whole thing goes together. To make the gears, I created these templates. These are based on a gear coming from Mathias Wandel gear generator. Mathias has also made many tutorials that include gear making. I'll add some links in the description of the video. I added tape and then glued the templates with spray adhesive. This will help me remove the templates easily. It was now a good time to mark the centers of the gears. Here I remove most of the material on the bandsaw. The angle of this jig is about 14 degrees and it is clamped on my bandsaw's base. Now I will start cutting the blue areas. With the blue areas cut, I can mirror the jig and cut the red areas. And that's the whole process in time-lapse. Let's hope they will work. This is just a popsicle stick with sandpaper and double-sided tape. This was a good time to assemble the box. I glued and nailed everything together. I like to use a wet rag to wipe off the excess glue. Here I glue a 6mm dowel in one gear. To drill the hole without tear out, I have clamped a scrap piece underneath. Using a hole saw, I make circular spacers. A relief cut will help me to uninstall them easily. They will be secured in place with a screw. I added the spacers and two washers so that the gears can work nicely. Next, to make a handle. At this point, I fill the nail holes. And a little bit of sanding. Following Mathias' advice, I varnish the pieces so that the gears can work a little bit better. I used clear water-based varnish. The top piece was made out of basswood. You can definitely use a hand plane to flatten the areas for the glue up, but a jointer will make things much easier. Next, to make my glued block square. After the jointer, I moved on to the table saw. With my block fairly square, I create my guidelines to cut some grooves on the table saw. The first cuts were fairly easy, but the diagonal were a bit more tricky. I made this small jig which I used half of it because it broke. This helped me hold the piece on my cross-cut sled. And this actually worked. Here I remove some material to save me some time on the lathe. Finally, I started turning. I did all the roughing with my bowl gouge. And some hollowing with the bowl gouge as well. And this is why I love wood turning. I use the flat chisel as a scraper to flatten the bottom. During the assembly, I lubricated the touching surfaces with my wax-based paste. I like to use the heat gun to speed up the drying processes. The top piece sits on this disc. I left the top with just friction fit in case I have to remove it later. And some more varnish. The grooves of the top were too large for the animation effect to work, so I made a paper insert to fix it. Perhaps in future I will remake another wooden top, but at this point I was running out of time. This will be my animation. The gears work pretty nicely. This project proved more difficult than I thought, but it was worth it. I can't wait to try out different animations on this thing. This kind of visual effect toys have always fascinated me. In order for the animation to work, you need your light to come from the top. The slots act as the shutter, so you must look through them. I am not sure if you can see it through the camera, but this actually works. I hope you liked this one, because that was it. See you soon with a new project video.